Okay, so I haven't been streaming lately, like anyone really looks at this. But anyway, I was going to talk about the Dark Gods and also their minions because in order to understand what happens in the Seventh Age, you really kind of have to understand what happens with the Dark Gods and their ascendants, commonly known as demons. Well, anyway, back after the two gods became many gods, and they didn't have enough power to create creatures, but had enough power to turn the souls of humans into new bodies, ascendants. Many of the dark gods mass recruited, but they had an issue with organization as they never really trusted much of each other. None of the dark gods trusted each other as they should have, and their forces were very disorganized and ineffective against the light gods' forces. Who there was a trust in organization. So, in order to counter or reorganize their forces, they each god chose two of the more powerful of ascendants, and they became the demon lords. There was the ones that are most important are really Severos, which was of Reotheria, and Crack, which was Kragor. Uh, there also was Plague, who's of Leosk. But anyway, what happens is this basically created a kind of this organized the Dark God Ascendants to such a point that they were able to push back, and it kind of back and forth, more of a back and forth instead of a continual loss they were experiencing before. Anyway, Reotheria fell after the dark after on the Age of Redemption. Dark Reotheria fell, and everyone thought he was dead. Even his two demon lords thought he was dead, and that they were pretty much free of being under his control, and kind of worked toward doing their own thing. But it turned out that Reotheria, up until the Fourth Age, had been recuperating on the in the Darklands. But he eventually uh, got hold of Severos, and even though Severos tried to resist it, Reotheria still had control over him, and he became a servant toward Reotheria. And Reotheria started trying to make moves toward trying to regain his spot and his power through multiple means. Reotheria recruited, got Severos to recruit another demon, this one of actually Kragor, known as Kraze, who was one of the most skilled of fighters outside the demon lords of Kragor. And he also later recruited a person who had been betrayed by, well, killed by Devados, for Devados feared what he could become, and he became known as the Black Swordsman. And these were pretty much what Reotheria used, his little band of people used to try and further his motives while trying to stop others who tried to interfere. Also, K. Thorum, he managed to gather a little posse. When he first went over to across the sands, when he came back, he did not only come back with a dragon that was killed in the Third Age, but he came back with a shaman who was an outcast, for he was very manipulative and evil, uncaring toward what he did with his powers, and honestly caused a lot of havoc over on the other side of the sands. But he knew Kathorn for what he was and worked with him because he wanted to see Kathorn succeed because it kind of interested him. But also, Kathorn recruited another one known as the First, and the First was one of the first of assassins for Cleton, the god of death. His group of assassins that try to maintain order, and the First was his most skilled of assassins, and honestly was one of the teachers of what was the current day curriculum they have. The unfortunate fact was, though, he fought against a demon that had the ability to regenerate. And in the fight, he managed to ingest some of the blood from that demon. And the demon part started slowly growing within him. And he has become immortal from the demon part taking over him. And he's been insane, but he will not die, no matter how much people try to kill him, and he wouldn't willingly die to the assassins of Cleton. Cleton has constantly sent out people to kill the First, but the First does not really want to die unless they can truly kill him. But unfortunately, his skill, due to his time fighting and his ability to regenerate thanks to the demon infestation within him, makes him impossible to kill. So, this is one time the Black Wolf actually encountered Kathorum during the Fifth Age, and uh, the wolf's inexperience made him weak enough that he wasn't even capable of defeating the First, and the First was all that fought him. Kathorum just watched. And this is pretty much what you would look at when you would see Kathorum dealing with the level of what Kathorm is, because Kathorm was even strong enough that that even the First kind of bowed down to him, which is the First really bowed down to no one before that, not even Cleton. So it kind of shows the amount of power. Anyway, during the Fifth Age, Greotheria sent Severos to found out. Well, let me first back up. Greotheria did some investigation into Kathorm because he was as puzzled about Kathorm as he knew nothing about him besides his mysterious appearance during the Age of Darkness. And his capabilities were extreme, and along with him not showing any sign of age since the Age of Darkness till the Third Age, which meant something was going on, because that was a few 3,000 years that since then, and he was not no different. So he did some investigation, and through his investigation, he found that there was a demon inside Kathorum, and he tasked Severos to remove that demon from Kathorum, thinking that that was his power. Unfortunately, when Severos went to remove the demon, he found that there was something else within Kathorum, and the demon was actually a sealant that had sealed the power. And when he took the demon out, the power unleashed out of Kathorum, Kathorum losing all control over it, and it consumed Severos. Severos, though, was able to escape, but lost a lot of his power, reverting his form, reverted to that of like a teenager instead of his normal, like full adult, 30 years of age appearance that he would normally take. And many people thought he was weaker, but still, he's way more, one of the most powerful of demon lords, that he was still more matched than anyone else. Also, During the Fourth Age, I didn't mention this in my previous broadcast, but during the Fourth Age, another entity showed up, Necros. And Necros is he's the god that he didn't he's not god, he's an entity, but unlike the other entities who kind of assimilated the culture, he tried to control it. He wants to take over it. He wanted to take over the realm of death from Cleton, but not to preserve the balance of life and death, but he instead wanted to take all the mana and use it to his own for his own goals, which unfortunately would disrupt the whole entire life and death cycle and cause Tantalar to die. And this was the whole entire purpose that Cleton had kept Ginkarat guarding the gates. And Ginkarat guarded the gates against Necros' forces. And Necros' forces were those who feared death and were given a gift of immortality, being the intelligent, evil undead, which was the rise of the vampires. Vampires started to appear during the Fourth Age. These are people who were gifted by Necros to live forever. But the first ones were the strongest. These were known as the forefathers. Honestly, there was another name for them I had better, but essentially the ones who were originally gifted with this gift were a lot stronger than their minions, the other vampires that became vampires by either being converted by the forefathers or when they're converted. Those were a lot weaker. And there were many different tribes, many different forefathers. I believe I have 10 created right now. The Silver Moon, which were like the most diplomatic of the groups, they actually were able to develop kind of coating on their skin that made it so that the sun wouldn't burn them on daytime. Then there was the Horde, which were the weakest of the bunch, but the most many of the bunch. They were they were very they spread very fast and they were all over the place. But generally, they are very also the ones that get slayed the most, as they were the most obvious groups be seen. There was also the poison blood, which were vampires that didn't generally like if they were very dangerous, very assassins kind of. And then the blood moon. The blood moon were the scariest of the bunch. The origin they weren't so much vampires as monsters, and they don't the bite of them. They wouldn't bite people and convert them. They would tear people apart. The only person who would make a blood moon vampire was the forefather of the blood moon clan. And generally, he was the most powerful of all the forefathers that such other forefathers generally feared. His presence when he would appear at meetings, although he very rarely associated himself at meetings, he would generally keep to himself and do whatever he wanted, which was killing. Yes, he was not a very but he was one of the strongest forces that were sent toward the gate. I mean, the Blood Moon vampires were what Geen Karat had the toughest time fighting against at the gates with Cleton's guardians, Reaper guardians, who were there to help him defend against Necros getting into the realm of the dead. Also, another important evil character in Tantalar history was known as the Unnamed, and he was a mysterious, enigmatic mage of sorts. He generally was never seen, and he would operate through puppets that would wear masks. And these puppets were generally dead bodies. The process of placing the mask on a body would kill the subject. And He had those, the dead body ones, and the ones made out of wood, which were the stronger ones. They that made out of wood from the forest the light elves used to live in. And he had been around since his earliest existence was around the age of creation. There was 4 sightings of his puppets, and many times people thought they would have found the original unnamed, only to realize that it was just another puppet. The dangerous things about these puppets were that if the mask was destroyed, it would create an explosion, meaning that to deal with them was a very risky business, very dangerous business, especially since he could also cause them to self-destruct on his own. The Unnamed was not a very... he played the long game. Many of his plans often seemed to fail, only to later be revealed as successfully working. And there's, I don't know. I'm trying to think of what other kind of evil characters that I forgot to mention so far. Let's see. Let's go through the numbers. Rheotheria, Leosk, their minions, the Unnamed, Necros. Sorry, I'm getting my book out. I actually wrote some of this stuff down in my book. Let's see. Generally, after Rheotheria fell, Shadow took over. He kind of ran his organization. Most people, his worshippers, live underneath the Forest of Shadows, which was aptly named after him because of how they control that area. But underneath is actually the City of Shadows, where they kind of live a samurai-istic, Japanese feudal kind of culture that lived down there, but a very strength. Value of strength, the weak were subjected to the strong, and who ruled was the strongest of the bunch. And they were constantly at odds and sneak in and try to disrupt the Southern Pact. Constant fights all throughout history up until the Sixth Age when K-Thorm took power, that they did not want to deal with K-Thorm and generally backed off because K-Thorm's united power. Also, during the Sixth Age, I forgot to mention this in my first history. During the Sixth Age, K-Thorm tried to subject the Sylvan Elves that lived in the Silverleaf Forest to his rule, but they refused. In response, he burned down the forest. So after the Sixth Age, the Sylvan Elves became an endangered species with only a few thousand alive. Those alive generally stayed on Gaiaria, the island off the coast where most of the forces of good and neutral, those who wouldn't subject themselves to K-Thorm rule, hid out. Although K-Thorm did try to take it back, take it over. I think that pretty much sums up all I wanted to talk about tonight, about my dark gods and their minions. I don't really want to reveal the truth about K-Thorm yet, so I'll stop it here.